Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive, and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
Welcome to the Full Monty, people, and today we're joined by someone who's no stranger to controversy, conviction, and conversation, MP Andrew Lawton. From radio waves to Parliament Hill, Andrew's journey has been anything but ordinary. We're going to dive into his personal story, his political rise, and the issues shaking up Elgin, St. Thomas, London South. So buckle up. This one's going to be raw, real, and revealing. Andrew, thank you, sir.
Hey, it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me, Tony.
I'm so happy that you were able to come in. I mean, I really gave you short notice. And so hard to get people in the summer. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's just so much going on, so many holidays, things like that.
Well,
right?
and as we record this, I'm getting ready to go to Ottawa in about 48 hours because Parliament's coming back. But I wanted to do it. We had to move some stuff around, but happy to chat.
I'm so impressed with your staff. Tara was awesome to do this. And I mean, I know we've met before a couple times, and I gave him my card, said I'd like to do it. But it's just been hard. My schedule hasn't been the most pleasant.
Yeah,
to do this, so.
Everyone's busy these days. That's the one universal truth. No matter where you go, is that everyone's running and coming and going and every which way.
Well, you were just on Mayor's Update the other night.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. So how was that? How's Joe? Is he?
It was good. I've been working with the city on one issue chiefly, which has been CN related. Obviously, the First Ave crossing in St. Thomas, the Barwick Street Bridge. So we wanted to give a bit of an update because that's one of these federal municipal crossover issues where we have to both work it up on our end. So we wanted to do that, and then also Joe had wanted to just have me on before I went back to Ottawa to talk about some of the priorities I'm bringing and that the riding has communicated. And I know you and I are going to be talking about a few of those and some other things
we'll
today.
Touch on a little bit, but now CN, that is a whole other entity. Mm-hmm. They are like their own planet to deal with them. I know many years ago, like I've been around city council for, I don't know, it was over 20 years. It was right after Jeff Kohler was mayor. Cliff Barwick came in. I was at Rogers TV and we were taping way back then, city council. And a lot of CN issues were coming up back then, people going on the property and in the bush. There were a lot of stolen things in there and people were actually living in there way back then. Homelessness wasn't the issue that we're dealing with today. But yeah, they were tough, man. Like they just like are the god of everything, and no matter what municipality or government, they don't care.
Well, and there's so much of the way that the rail rules and regulations have been written that's based on this idea that there's going to be this good faith cooperation between municipalities and CN, and that relationship is just not what it was envisioned as and not what it's supposed to be. I mean, you mentioned CN, especially in St. Thomas, the railway city. Rail history is so significant here, and CN is just this collective eye roll you get because anyone who's had to deal with them knows. So again, it's been difficult, but we need to still deliver results. And getting the First Ave crossing was good for now, but there are underlying issues with the tracks and ties, which means that crossing is going to be a problem again in 8-9 months. So we're trying to preempt that and not have it be a crisis that's blowing out people's vehicles as they drive over
absolutely. It. And have you gone over it since the repair?
Yeah, it's already showing.
Yeah. I mean, I know they said they were going to cold patch or something that's not going to last, but that dip, holy jumping, man. Yeah. Now, before it was so rough, it would like literally blow the struts right out of your car.
I think there was like a fire truck or a garbage truck. There was some municipal vehicle that got pretty significantly damaged at one point. Yeah, before the patch up.
Now, here's the other one. Have you gone highway speed and hit out by North Star Windows on the bypass?
I only go the speed limit wherever I travel.
Okay. Well,
I feel like I'm being entrapped here.
No, but hit those tracks.
Okay.
That's Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay.
That's like our old Balaclava Street. They actually have raised it up. So when you hit that, and all they did is put a bump sign. Yeah. That's it. And the bump sign
I know the one you're talking about.
Right at the bump. Holy boy, you hit that one? Oh,
yeah.
You could come from Talbotville, hit that doing about 60, you'll be in Ottawa before the time.
There you go. That might be my plan when I'm going back and forth from the riding to Ottawa now. Just hit it at a good 80 kilometers.
Oh, I know, exactly. All right, so I have my list of questions, right? And we're going to go over a little bit of stuff, but I got to touch on this, Andrew, because, and you made a post yesterday. Charlie Kirk was basically, he was assassinated.
Yeah.
And they're calling it a political assassination, right? It bothers me, and frankly, it pisses me off because the amount of violence that we're seeing, the increase of it.
Yeah.
Now, when I had former politicians in here, and even city council, and I asked them about violence and personal attacks and things, and so they were opening up about things that they were kind of like a training thing when they took office, and how to handle this kind of stuff, but where they can go if it gets to that point, right? Charlie was on there trying to bring in the next generation, get all the younger people in, and I don't care what party you are involved with. I've said over and over and over again, I don't care who you vote for, just vote. Because I'm 36 years now in the Legion. I've worked with the Elgin Regiment. A lot of our soldiers coming back. I'm past one of the officers for the Zone A7 for all of our 10 branches in our zone. And that's why our guys like Steve Peters, I've been associated with the Veterans Memorial Gardens. This is really near and dear to me. It's been my whole life. And I used to be a cadet trainer for the Army. So the voting is so important. I've always said to everybody in today's world, the 2 minutes at Remembrance Day is nowhere near enough. Like that just, we have about 2-3 weeks of, puppy campaign, the awareness is there, things are all hype, and then it's over with, you're done. You want to thank a vet, vote. That's what they went for. That's, you were able to do the election, get through everything, and that's because we have that privilege, right? So now Charlie's down there and he's trying to talk all to the next generation about nonviolence. Debate is great. Fight with words. Express yourself that way. I even hate that word, fight. I think you can have some pretty heated discussions and everything, but I hate it when it gets nasty. I've seen the comments on you. I've seen it on our mayor, our former PM. Yeah, he wasn't one fan of mine either, but I always respected the office, right? And when you were going through your election, there was a lot of controversy in there, and we know with Anthony and everything, and I'm a member of the party too. I was at Elmer that night. I watched some people walk out, but I'm the type of person that you want it, so let's go. But I will say this, you have just completely freaking opened my eye. Like, I love you in Parliament, man. You are phenomenal.
Thank you.
Like you are really nailing them, and it's nice to see because they do, and you're doing it with words. You're not being nasty. You're not name calling. I mean, our former PM, I used to call him Honey Boo Boo, but he. Yeah, even our new one, I hate the terms that people are using today. And I think when I sent you a message, I had used one of them in my message, right? And then I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, you got to respect the office. You may not like the person that's in it, but I said, Anthony Shields, I had backed him and I was going to run for him, and I attended your thing in Elmer. And anyway, you won it. That was great. Okay, well, let's see what you can do. Let's run with it, right? And then I've watched you now on the videos I'm like, man, this guy's nailing it. Yeah, really good. So I hope things continue that way. Like, I really do. I think you're doing awesome. So, so Charlie, very sad day. I mean, worldwide, right? So how's this going to affect us up here?
Well, so I'll say a couple of things here. I mean, I've never met Charlie Kirk. I've seen his clips, and I've agreed with some stuff he says and disagree. But that is not the point. I mean, the reality is, we're still waiting for, as we record this, some information about who was behind it and whatever. generally speaking, I think we can all be pretty clear that it had something to do with politics. It had something to do with him. And this was, if you looked at the footage, this was someone that thought this through. They staked out a position, and they took out a father of two, 31 years old. It's tragic. And it hits close to home for me as someone who was in politics and in media before I ran for office, and now as someone who's in office, because, there are a small list of people that are putting themselves out there, and anyone who's in the political space is among that. And I'm not making what happened to Charlie about me. I know a lot of people that are in politics right now that are in Parliament that have to rely on, or have had to rely on, security details because of threats they get. And sometimes it's for a particular period of time. I've heard of other cases where people can't even safely leave their homes because of tensions. And this has been especially true with like the Israel-Palestine conflict. A lot of Jewish politicians in Canada have really been in the crosshairs. And, for me, it's upsetting because whatever you think of Charlie, his whole philosophy was let's engage in debate. And that doesn't mean he's not trying to, score political points and get, good traction on social media. But he would always invite, because I've seen on social media now a lot of clips of him just circulating. And the one thing that's interesting is that whenever someone comes in and they have this drastic disagreement with him, I am this person, or I am this, or I think this, sometimes the audience will boo them. And he's the first to say, whoa, 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 let them speak. Let them say what they think. Let them say their piece, and then he will engage, and they will have that debate. And that's the point of it. Charlie is someone who his whole philosophy was, if you have an issue with me, tell me, and let's have it out. And for someone to settle a disagreement with bullets, with political violence, it's despicable. It's disgraceful. For people that cheer this on because they don't like the person who was hit, like my view on this would be consistent regardless of whether it's a liberal, a conservative, a Democrat, or Republican. There was a Minnesota state legislator that was killed in June, a Democrat, equally reprehensible. It doesn't matter what your views are. This is not the way we settle disagreements. We have this sacred right in Western democracies of being able to discuss, of being able to vote, of being able to debate. And to do what people do in countries that don't have that right to settle that is disgraceful.
I just can't even imagine the feelings of, as you get higher up in politics, but even in our area, you're our federal MP. You're going to go out and participate in community events and stuff. You never can think about that kind of thing would happen to Charlie, because you'd never go out of your house if you actually think about what could happen. But I 1000% believe that as we get further along in our lives in this journey, since social media, how we have become desensitized to a lot of this stuff, and the more things we see, the less it bothers us. Those ones that are very unstable, that copycat killers and stuff, that it gives them ideas on how to. And a lot of these events, like when Charlie was setting that, this is months in advance when it's put out that they're going to be attending this place, or they're going to be doing this rally wherever. And it gives somebody a lot of time to plan, to execute something that well, to go and scope an area and see the layout and plan their entry, their escape, the shot, the whatever. I really do believe a lot of social media, this is we see so much of it now. And it's not, the poor young girl, the Ukrainian girl. At first you just saw the moment up to the guy going to, and then all of a sudden, boom, TikTok's flooded with the actual attack, and you see it. And we were talking off camera, and I said the very first video I ever saw when all this started was Nicholas Berg from the States over in Iraq, was captured, decapitated. I mean, that buggered me for months. It really affected me because I've never seen nothing like that. And the sounds and everything. And now you watch this now, and you're just kind of like, oh, wow, look at that. Like, you're just, it does not have that effect anymore like it would have back then. Oh, horrible. Absolutely. But more now, it just pisses me off that it's come to this point. That this guy that's trying to take a next generation and teach them how to debate, bring it forward, but be kind. You don't have to slander people. You don't have to call them names. And
I wouldn't even say be kind, be civil, because sometimes there's
Well, that's
a
kind of
there's a
what I
place
mean.
for frustration.
Yeah.
There's a place, especially, and again, I get that as a politician. I think, generally speaking, my view is that I'll listen to anyone, I'll talk to anyone. If someone is frustrated with the government, frustrated with me, they have a right to express that. So it's when that becomes threatening. It's when someone wants to speak but doesn't have an appetite or a capacity to listen, that there's the problem. Because I think generally speaking, if you're going to sound off about something, you have a moral obligation to hear what the other person has to say.
Right,
and you'll find, at the risk of getting too boring on this, there's a John Stuart Mill, who's a great thinker in the past. He had written about, the magic of free expression is that you realize that, maybe the truth lies somewhere between, or between what two people think, or maybe you hear someone you disagree with and it helps you see their way, or maybe it just helps you become more aware of what you think. But either way, there's no downside to having that engagement with people. And we've lost the ability as a society, we've lost the willingness to engage with people we disagree with. And, I used to love when I worked in talk radio, I would always, take callers. And, I would, if someone disagreed with me, they would be on twice as long as anyone who agreed with me, because it was a more interesting dialogue.
Yeah, it would be.
You don't want everyone just calling in and being like, yeah, I agree with you, Andrew. It's because where do we go from there?
Yeah,
if we disagree,
true.
we can actually turn that into something.
That's right. That's right. And that's what Charlie was always.
Yeah.
If you were had an opposition flag or something, I think the big one down there was the transgender.
Yeah.
And the shootings or whatever happened.
I think they were all going
He
to the
was
front of the
inviting
line.
him-
Yeah.
He was inviting them up and let's get into it. So it's sad.
It is.
It's sad. And I think this is going to be a big turning point, not just for the States, but I think up here too. You're going to start to see things start. People are sick of it.
Yeah.
They're getting tired of the way things are.
Agreed.
So let's go back to, excuse me, when Andrew was just a little guy in your start. So where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Trenton. My father was
yeah.
in the Canadian Armed Forces, so he got out when I was about 2 years old, and we moved to London. I grew up in London, went to school there, and apart from a brief stint in university where I was did a summer in Ottawa, I've lived down in southwestern Ontario my whole life. And my wife, she's from Dorchester.
Is she really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and used to work. She grew up in a funeral home. She was taken home from a hospital to the funeral home in Dorchester, and now now she's actually more recently. She was in journalism. She worked at the St. Thomas Times Journal and the London Free Press. She went back to school and got her law degree. And she is just in the process of finalizing becoming a lawyer. So within the span of about a month of each other, we became a politician and a lawyer. So not much for our popularity as a couple, but but I'm very proud of her. So
What was that old joke about why, if a lawyer goes swimming in a shark-infested ocean, why does the shark never bite the lawyer? And it was something about professional courtesy.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. So high school. So that was all in London?
Yep.
You went into
Yeah,
in high
Central
school
and
there?
then
So-
Saunders.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Saunders. Yeah. So when you get out of high school, so what was your very first job?
My very first job, I had like a paper route as a kid, but my first job that had a T4, I was bussing tables at the 4 Point Sheraton in London.
Oh, yeah.
And it was on the breakfast shift on weekends, and it was grueling because breakfast at that hotel on Saturdays is just an absolute chaos. There's no such thing as a down moment. And I had the manager that anyone who's worked in food service has had, the if you have time to lean, you have time to clean manager.
Oh, wow.
So like
Okay.
you could never be spotted not doing something. But it was incredibly important. And it's funny because we've talked a lot in kind of politics right now about youth unemployment. Like youth unemployment in Canada is about 14.6% right now. Okay. And every day I get parents saying my son or daughter can't find a job. They can't get a job.
See it online.
Yeah,
every day.
and it's so difficult because like I cut my teeth as a worker in those entry-level service jobs. They're very low pay. They're very low. They're low on glamour, but they teach you responsibility and duty and dealing with people. And I think I don't believe in conscription on employment, but I do think everyone should work in a restaurant at some point in their life
absolutely.
it just steals you for all of this other stuff. But anyway, that's a long way of saying that was my first
did
job.
my time down at the wharf in Port Stanley.
Yeah.
I used to it was dishwasher. And then I slowly worked my way up through the kitchen, and actually I can tell you a little story about that. But way back then, the main chef, this is years ago, he showed up one day drunk, and anyway, the owners were away and he was cooking away, and I was washing, and I come back around because people were, where's my food? Found out, I looked down, there's his feet laying on the floor. I'm like, what the heck? I go over, he passed out.
Oh boy.
So I wound up jumping in and wound up cooking the rest of the day, so we didn't have to close that restaurant.
Did anyone get food poisoning, or was it all good? Okay.
No, it was all good. I actually was able to bring in some of my own little dishes that I like, roasted garlic potatoes and stuff.
Oh, nice. Oh, there you go. You overhauled the menu.
You did. I did, just for that one day.
Yeah.
But then I never cooked after that again. But so you went from the kitchen and doing all that. So what was your interest in radio broadcasting?
Being opinionated was how it started.
No, you're not opinionated.
I've mellowed now, but at the time I was. So I started writing online. I started blogging back when that word was pretty new into the lexicon. And I was in school. I was interested in politics. And I had some friends that, had developed larger audiences writing online, and there was no money to be made in it. It wasn't a job. It was just a hobby. And I started doing that. And around 2000, I don't know, 2009, 2010 or so, podcasting was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And, I was able to find some, cheap USB microphone and have a hand at podcasting. But what was really interesting is that at the time, there was this growing demand, but no one was doing it. There was no supply. So it was actually very easy to carve out a bit of a niche and, develop a bit of an audience. And we did very well, and actually covered a lot of U.S. politics, because that was where a lot of the huge audience was, because talk radio in the U.S. is so big. And, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just, kind of mouthing off, and I was 21 at the time.
But you got the voice for it, too.
Yeah.
Which is huge. You do.
But, I was, 2021, like, I didn't know what I was doing, and, made a lot of missteps along the way, as people are well aware. But it got me into that world. And then when I was getting a little bit older, London's radio station, 980 CFPL, was going through a bit of a changeover, and they had a show opening up, and they had reached out to me to do some guest hosting, and I was happy to do that. And then eventually they offered me a show there, and I was in it. And, that was, of course, like AM radio and 10 years ago was a lot more than it is now.
Oh, I loved AM radio
but
back then.
I loved it as well, because the immediacy of radio. Like this is a great conversation. I love it.
Yeah.
I like being able to do it live. And that was what was great about radio, is that you go and whatever happens, it's live.
You know what I found, though? Live is easier.
It is. Because you don't second guess yourself.
That's right.
And you don't think about, should I edit this? Should I cut this? Was that the best way of doing it? And, it takes less time for me to do a 3-hour show than it would to do like a 10-minute pre-recorded video.
Yeah.
Because like live, you just have to go. And if there was something happening that was breaking news, you would have to just respond with it and roll with it. So I really enjoyed that. And then I had the chance to do some national work. I was guest hosting out in Alberta, guest hosting nationally, and
nice.
And eventually moved back into the online space. It all went full circle, and I ended up going back to doing a podcast as that became larger.
Now, is that when True North?
Yes.
So that was your podcast?
Yeah, so I did. So 980, I mean, because the whole, you haven't worked in radio until you've been fired from radio.
Yeah, I know.
Radio is like, and it used to be like...
I got canceled.
Yeah, someone would be fired in the morning and, hired in the afternoon. And it was just a restructuring. They changed formats on me, which was fine. And then my friend Candace Malcolm, who had known through media work nationally, she had been starting this little scrappy upstart called True North, and said, hey, we'd love to have you come and do your show there. And then that organization, when I started out with it, had, I think, 2 people, me and her and a part-timer. And then by the end of it, when I left to go into politics, it had about 20 and multiple shows and whatnot, and was doing a lot in that conservative media space across the country. So I've always lived here, but my focal point on what I was covering was always national issues.
So your initial platform then for the Andrew Lawton Show, what was the platform for that? But was that before True North, or did True North come after the Andrew Lawton Show?
True North existed before the Andrew Lawton Show, but then the Andrew Lawton Show went to True North after it was no longer, because you can't have an Andrew Lawton Show without Andrew Lawton. So wherever I was doing a show, that became the Andrew Lawton Show. So so in 2018, I left 980 in, I think it was like March or whatever, and then I had ended up starting my show in August of that year. And it went through different formats. Like at first we tried to do shorter videos, and then eventually we kind of expanded it back into a live daily show.
Which today I see so many comments on your page and stuff when you're you still have a ton of fans.
Yeah.
They want you to come back.
Yeah, but I'm like, you know what? For me, the Andrew Lawton Show can now be on the floor of the House of Commons. Like, I still want to use that skill set, because one of the things I absolutely loved about having a show was interviewing people. And it goes back to what we said earlier, whether you agree or disagree with me, I loved learning. I loved that conversation. And I was thinking when I went into politics of how that skill transfers. Like, imagine if I'm on a committee, that interviewing skill, when I have a witness in front of me and I want to learn about, whatever they're an expert on. Or if it's someone that there's a bit of tension, I need to be able to say, well, hang on, that's not the case. That's not the way it is. And, I had a little bit of an opportunity to do that in the House of Commons with the Public Safety Minister on firearms back in June. There was an exchange that ended up going viral because I was talking to him and he really didn't know his file. And someone said, this is just like, what you used to do in your old show with politicians that didn't know anything. So, but now I'm also the politician, so I have to make sure I know my stuff as well.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to go back a little bit. I believe it was around 2005, 2013. You started going through a mental health thing, and now the world is opening up more to this issue. For a long time, when you talked about first responders and PTSD, it was very, well, even in still some of them, they're open to talk. Mm-hmm. People come forward and say, I have this, I'm having this issue, but then it's kind of like, it's done with. Like, there's no follow-up. Mm-hmm. There's no... So what happened in your time? I know you were open about this before, and we'll kind of get into what happened, but you were very lucky to be here.
Yeah.
So you had a hell of a journey. What was going on in your life back then
It started when I was in high school. Actually, it started a little bit before then. I'd always had some issues with depression and whatnot. Okay. I will say, just to take a step back, I mean, the stigma issue is very real. Like, there are people who, they have families that are not equipped to deal with these. For some, it's ethnic and cultural reasons. For others, it's religious. For some, it's that, maybe the parents have their own trauma and baggage and are just not emotionally open. I didn't have to deal with that. I had parents that were incredibly loving, incredibly supportive. I could talk about it, but I just was finding life more and more difficult. And you'd go through peaks and valleys. I'd go through times where everything was great.
Bullied?
Oh yeah, from the time I was.
Was that a big part of it?
It certainly doesn't help.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be happy when, everyone's pointing out how, fat you are or whatever. And people still do that every day, but I'm better at dealing with it. But the thing about it was that, like, as I got older and, you try to sort of make that transition from adolescence to adulthood, you find that the issues are still there and they're harder to deal with. And when I look back at my own journey, it's complicated because there are times when, I was doing things really well, things that I'm proud of, that I'm happy about. And then I look at other things I was doing and I know that's not me, that's not who I am, that's not who I was. And, I had made a couple of, attempts on my life, attempting suicide a couple of times over the years. And then the real one that almost ended my life was in 2010. I was 20, I would have been 21, and I intentionally overdosed on prescription medications I had and was in the hospital for about 7 weeks.
Wow. You were in a coma, weren't you?
I was in a coma for much of it.
Life support?
Life support. Had to be resuscitated a couple of times. There was a very dramatic moment, apparently, when one of the doctors was basically ready to call it, and one of the others kept going.
Only talking 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, roughly. Only, but it's been a lot's happened in my life in that 15 years to move beyond that. But really for a good chunk of my life, that was my reality, and depression was the cause, and it manifests so differently for different people, and addiction is another example of that, and I think the challenge when I look back at how to turn what I went through into something more positive, it's that we often talk about stigma in the abstract, if we should be able to talk about it, but in our own lives, if someone were to come to us, would we know what to do? Okay. Would we know what to say? Would we know how to respond? And I was involved up until I was on the board of a suicide prevention charity. And yesterday, September 10th, was World Suicide Prevention Day.
Yes, it was.
So every year I make a point of marking that and going to an event on that because, we need to be able to equip people to have these conversations. And it's difficult, but it's something that has been always a focal point of my advocacy efforts.
Well, you actually being in Parliament, though, you have impact with that now because you lived it.
Yeah.
You're not a politician that's just there because it's suicide awareness.
Yeah, and I look at myself now, and I'm living a life that at my lowest of lows 15 years ago, I never would have thought was possible. Like if you had said to the Andrew that was planning to end his life, you're going to be a member of parliament, you're going to have this amazing wife, you're going to be so proud of the work you're doing, you're going to have 2 best-selling books, I would have been like, you're like, that's stupid. But I just couldn't see that. There was no hope. And just to bring it back to politics for a moment, one of the bills that I'm working on is a bill that will stop the expansion of assisted suicide to people with mental illness. In 2027, if nothing changes, the MAID rules in Canada will expand. So someone who has no physical ailment whatsoever, just a mental illness, will be eligible. And this has been very alarming to people in the mental health space. Veterans have been very concerned about this because we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to equip people to live their best lives, to have hope. To live in strength, and we want to be able to give people a right to recover. So that's something where I've used my experience to champion that.
I look at it this way too, that when somebody is in this side and they come out, they get the help, or by grace of God, they get through it. And then they're so thankful. Thank you for being there, helping me. Thank you. I didn't see that where it was going. So how can you take their life now because they can't see what's the real reality of what's going on? So absolutely, you can't if it's a terminal disease and something else like that. And I've had tenants here that have had MAID service here where they ended it. That's a great bill to work on because they can't see the actual truth of what's happening. And once you can get them through that tunnel and hopefully get them through there, not all of them are going to come through, but those. But that's going to be a very low number, I would think. You're going to help the majority of them, and they're going to be so thankful that they were able to come through that side, right? So that can save lives.
That's the hope.
So that's going to be it. So that had to be quite a time for you though, like growing up.
It was
to get through it, and your family, like everybody around.
It was, and I mean the challenge was when I was at the worst points, I was really going through it in secret. Like publicly, I was projecting. Like people were shocked when they found out what had happened because publicly it's he's so happy, he's laughing, he's joking, but
you know what? Well, what they say about Robin Williams?
Yeah,
the man, but they always said those comedians and that put on that kind of show are usually hurting so bad inside, but they never tell you. So, glad you made it through though.
Thank you.
That's a hell of a fight. But you're probably still all the time. Like, do you have to take medications?
Nope.
Up to now? Oh,
no.
Good.
I'm fine, but I also know what to look out for in myself now, and that's the key.
You know what though? And I tell everybody, we all have mental health. Doesn't matter. When people judge others, but I always said, you cannot be human if you don't have. Now I know there's regular emotions of sadness, but we all have depression at some point.
And that's, I think, the key is that there are people, like, we'll all go through happiness, sadness, anxiety. The issues with mental illness, at least through the frame that I'm looking at it through, is that your ability to handle those normally.
That's right.
Like if you lose a loved one, you're always going to go through a series of emotions. The issue is, are you going through something that you can't process because you don't have the tools to do it? Or are you going through these different emotions for no reason? Right. And that's when, or for no external reason. And that's where, often people have to be really mindful that there might be something else going on.
Right. Absolutely. Let's jump up to the Freedom Convoy. Okay. So you came out, I've watched some, I think it was True North episodes. I saw you in Ottawa walking around and talking. So in 2022, you came out with a book.
Yep.
How was all that for you when you were there, saw it? I mean, I was so wrapped up in this whole thing because I didn't like the vaccine mandates and things were going on. I am a past retired truck driver myself. I've been all through the States and across Ontario. Didn't do Canada. It was usually Chicago all the way down to Texas and Carolina, Pennsylvania a lot. So I didn't like what I was seeing back then. I was still kind of mixed back and forwards on how the whole overtake kind of went. But I really loved the idea of shutting the trucking industry down because, man, you want to make any country, stop the trucks.
And we were already dealing with supply chain issues at the time on grocery store shelves. And
the whole when the PM and it all went through courts and they said, we all know the people that were involved with it and what's happened to them. And it's almost like a political witch hunt that came on, right? And people now can go out and rob or kill somebody, and you do way less time than what they're trying to do to these people that were just for the truck thing, right? So how did you find coming out with that book?
So, I was covering, what was happening with the protest as it was happening as a journalist, and like you, I mean, I was very critical of the mandates. I was never anti-vaccine. I was never denying that COVID was a thing that we needed to account for. But I felt like there was a heavy-handed response from the government, and I was talking about that. So when this protest happened, I was interested in it partially as an historian, as someone who enjoys Canadian history, because we don't see these large-scale pseudo. I don't know. I want to use the word uprising. I don't mean it that way, but we don't see large protests of that nature generally in Canada. So I was seeing that the mainstream media in Canada was really missing the mark on what was happening. They were too focused on some narrow things that didn't really matter. And one example was the money. So this had raised $10 million on GoFundMe, and then GoFundMe shut it down. And then it raised another $10 million on an American platform, Give, Send, Go, and the government basically shut that down. So none of that money made its way to the truckers. They were all just fueled by people just donating gas, donating diesel, donating cash, bringing food up and all of that. And for me, I was noticing that there were a few things that just didn't quite sit right to me. Like the media was trying to label everyone with a brush that wasn't really applying. They were using terms like white supremacist and Nazi, and then I'm seeing like an Indian trucker and a Quebec separatist and an Indigenous person all like hugging and dancing in the street. So I just wanted to understand what was happening. So I went up to Ottawa at a couple of points. I was there for the first weekend and the last weekend, and was just observing myself, and I found that this was not the protest that was being conveyed on TV. That's not to say it wasn't disruptive. That's not to say people in downtown Ottawa didn't have very legitimate grievances. And I think there was a failing in leadership in not dealing with things that could have been done, not engaging with people, not realizing that, hey, maybe they have a point on some of these core frustrations. So at the end of it, I realized that I felt like someone needed to tell the story not through a promotional lens, but through a journalistic lens that was looking at all the things that I didn't feel journalists were looking into. So I kept saying to this one friend of mine who's an author, someone needs to write a book, and then he said, shut up and do it yourself. So I did it. and it was my first book, and I wrote it very, very quickly relative to how book writing usually goes. And I interviewed a lot of the key players. I interviewed some of the political leaders involved. And I tried to tell that part of the story. And it ended up being the best-selling book in Canada for the summer of 2022 for, I think it was about seven weeks or so.
Awesome. That was one of my things I was going to say. Is it became a bestseller. But Indigo Books, they offered it online, but they wouldn't stock it.
No.
So how did that make you feel? Like, what does that talk about Canadian publications and stuff?
Yeah.
So when they take that, we'll sell it, but we ain't gonna.
My answer on Indigo has changed now, because when my second book came out, Indigo was like, they realized what had happened the first time, they were putting it on the front table. They were like saying, "Oh, it's a bestseller, please buy it." So I'm good with Indigo now.
Okay.
And I've emailed with Heather Reisman, the CEO. She'd be fine, but they made a decision that I felt was wrong. They were trying to sort of preserve this image of what they were, not realizing how much of an appetite there was. Like this was, as I said, like it was the best. My publisher said it was the best-selling book they've ever published in Canada. And it was, I mean, thank goodness for Amazon, because on Amazon it was, available. People were getting it, and independent bookstores carried it. It was just Indigo. It was just Indigo that wouldn't put it on the shelves for whatever reason. But I still did all right with it, so I can't complain too much.
So so you're in the radio, you're doing the podcast, you've written now the books. So what made you decide now? Karen Vecchio is announcing that she's not going to continue anymore, right? And I've had dealings with back when Karen was Joe's PR person, everything, and watch Karen come up to that. Oh my God, I don't even know when it was. I was at Rogers TV, and I organized back then a Haitian relief fund. We did a drive at Wendy's. Joe has been just phenomenal at Wendy's, man. Anything I've ever needed, Joe's been like the first one there. So I went to city council, and I have like Steve Peters and Cliff Barwick, the mayor. I had EMS. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember everybody that was there. Police, St. Thomas Police. We all went to Wendy's, and 3 hours. we did this Haitian fund relief drive, and then on top of that, and it was at the time that the government was matching dollar for dollar, whatever we could raise. Then on top of that, I think Joe had donated 1,000 out of his own pocket on top. So we wound up in 3 hours. I think it was like $3,500 that we raised. Then with the government side, so we raised like $6,500 in 3 hours. Later on, I get a thing from Karen, and I was presented by her from Joe a citizenship award for doing this, right? And it was so nice. That kind of got me into the politics, because I kind of grew up with it. My neighbor in Mitchell, where I grew up, was Hugh Edigoffer. Hugh Edigoffer was a liberal. My parents were all liberals back then, and Hugh was the Speaker of the House in Toronto. So I kind of grew up with all that and heard all the internal stuff, right? Yeah. And then when I started going with the extinguishers for Cindy, from my radio days, I have a file still on my computer of all my radio contacts, of all the stations everywhere. And I wrote up a generic letter about what happened to Cindy up on Highbury Ave this whole campaign about getting fire extinguishers into vehicles. I got letters from our mayor and police and fire departments. I traveled all over Ontario to fire departments. Managed to eventually get. Then Jeff Urick went out, which really broke my heart, because Jeff was, oh my God, I just love Jeff, like in that. So I really had a lot of plans to work with Jeff on getting this. Anyway, Jeff got out. Rob Flack came in, and we did get invited. It was December 1st, 3 years ago, I think, maybe a couple of years ago now, to Toronto. And Rob stood up and read the whole campaign in the House, and that was pretty cool. But that whole thing of the letter from my radio days, so I fired out one generic thing to everybody. And the very first guy that answered back, and I'm sure you're going to know who he is, because he was on the Chorus Radio Network and syndicated across Canada. I've been on his show a few times. But Roy Green.
Oh, yes. I used to guest host for Roy.
Did you?
So, yeah.
Roy is phenomenal. Yeah. I love Roy. And within an hour of me sending this out, Roy called me. And he's like, Tony, or first he emailed me, and then we talked on the phone. And he's like, I got to get you on the phone. Like, we got to do this. I originally was on his show like 25 years ago. And it was about, could you survive 1 week without your tech toys? So no cell phone, there was no cell phone, no computer, and there was no TV, no faxes.
Oh, fax.
No, you
I can live without the fax machine now. I don't need that one.
But all that. So anyway, I got on there. My wife at that time had wrote him a letter, because he had advertised on the show, and she said, "Yeah, I have my cell phone like a cop's gun, or a gun on the cop's hip." Yeah. And I just lived on this phone, and that's way back. I mean, phones were just coming out, right? So anyway, so Roy was the first one I got on, and then it got very political after that, where we really started to press. This whole thing, we raised about $53,000 locally, and we did 4 draws, and we handed out 1,400 fire extinguishers. So we were able to, get a lot of fire extinguishers out for people. But the political side of it, that's what got my attention to, start joining parties. And then I don't vote by party anymore. Like, I don't vote by party. I vote by who I think that person is doing. Like, if all of a sudden you came in and you were liberal, and I had already known you and know what kind of work, I'm jumping ship. Like, you're the guy I want for my area. I don't care really of the party, because I know you're going to take a lot of it, though, too. You will take people, and sometimes you have to stand your ground. It's people over party. There are sometimes parties will come out with things that I can't do that.
And I coming into it from a media background is helpful for me in that way, because I'm not a lifelong partisan. I've criticized the Conservative Party. In some cases, I've criticized them. I've criticized them on my show probably more than the Liberals, because I expect more from them. For me, that has never been an issue, and I wouldn't have gone in when I did had I not felt I was able to do that. And that was a crucial decision of why I was choosing to run now, because I know that there will be and is the opportunity for independence and standing up for the riding and my own values above, whatever the party talking points say.
Well, let's get into, because we're going to end this here quick, because I know you got a lot going on. So let's just talk briefly, because I've been watching this online, and let's talk about the Hildebrands. Okay. Elmer, you had the meeting there. Anthony Shields was invited up that night.
So that was so Anthony Shields. That was his event.
Was that his event?
Yeah, it was his event, and he was running for the nomination.
Okay.
And I was very grateful he did it because we weren't going to have the opportunity to square off under the rules for the nomination. So he had said it was going to be a town hall for him, and he had said, "Hey, I'm doing this town hall anyway. Do you want to come and we'll make it I don't know if debate's the right word, but we'll make it a dialogue." And I said, yeah, absolutely. But that was his event.
So that's how it went.
He had invited Herbert Hildebrandt, who I realized.
So Anthony had invited Herbert to be the all
to
right.
be the
See,
MC.
this is what
And to be fair, like
it all came across that it was that had them as MC. So.
But at the same time, I mean, Herbert, is a member of the Elmer business community. He did a very good job talking about a number of issues, and I don't want to spend a huge amount of time relitigating the COVID era, but my knowledge of and awareness of the Church of God in that context was because I felt like the government was being heavy-handed on COVID restrictions in general, as and I spoke to. And I thought that when churches were trying to do things like drive-in services, which is how that whole thing started, they should have the right to do it. And people have asked me about what relationship I have. It's I don't have one. They're the same as any other church or religious institution in the riding, and that I'll stand for religious freedom. I want to keep government out of the way of people's lives. And I had a couple of weeks ago where in the same week in my constituency office, I met with an Ahmadiyya Muslim, with a group of Baha'i, with a United Church minister. I represent everyone, and that's my attitude on this. And I think that when people who take frustrations out from a particular period, if you take that one step further, do you really want MPs that are going to pick and choose who they represent?
Absolutely.
And for me, I say absolutely not.
You can't. You got to be wide open. But that's why I just wanted to ask you, right? So, because keyboard warriors, the stuff you see online, it's bad. It's not good at all. So I always wanted to find out, was there an association to that? Because I do remember you talking about moving to the riding. Yep. Which we were going to talk about that. So is that still in the works?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be honest, my wife and I have looked at a couple of places already. It's something that we would have done regardless, because anyone who's seen anyone who's seen what's happened to the cities in Canada knows that I can't get out of there quickly enough. We had hoped to do it this summer, but I was doing so much on the work front that I didn't want to take 2 weeks off to whatever. So we are planning, but at the end of the day, I think the one thing I've made a point of demonstrating, I think, is that I'm all in it, and I've been making a point of going to every event that I can, meeting with as many constituents as possible, and I'm fully invested. And this is a job for me that is centered around the community work. And, I want to spend as little time in Ottawa as is necessary to do the work there, but get back into the riding as soon as I can without making sure that I'm missing.
Now, do you have Karen's residency in Ottawa? For like when she was at this, is that like her condo or whatever it was in Ottawa?
No, that was every MP decides for themselves.
Get to decide where you go? Okay.
I'm staying in a hotel when I'm in Ottawa, at least for now, because what I'm doing is I'm going up Monday morning, and when possible coming back Thursday night or sometimes Friday. You can do whatever. Like basically you're given an allocation, and you can spend that money on rent or on hotels. I think it's about probably 40%, rent an apartment, 40% stay in hotels, and then you have some that, move, that own a place there. Especially with younger families, sometimes they want to just have their kids up in Ottawa. But no, I'm staying in hotels for now.
Okay. Yeah. I had it set up with Karen that one time when her and even Mike were down there. I've always wanted to go to the War Museum.
Oh yeah,
and I want to tour the Parliament.
Yeah,
that's one of my, I don't know, it's on my bucket list.
I'll set it up for you.
Would you? I'd love to come to Ottawa.
Just make sure it's when the House is sitting, and then I can give you the tour personally.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. I've always wanted to see that. I was fascinated by Toronto. Queen's Park was just an amazing building. Yeah, and for me, I don't know why, but the best part was going downstairs where the restaurant is down there, and you can actually walk up to any politician there and sit down and just have a coffee with them. Like, wow. Just, I don't know. I guess I please easy. I don't know. Anyway, so let's take a look here at a couple other things I wanted to go on here. And we're talking about right now about what's happening in St. Thomas, okay? So we have our police chief that just came out and had made a whole statement about prolific offenders, right?
Yes.
We have this one individual that I've even had some run-ins personally with this guy going down Talbot Street. And he likes to make renovations kind of a number one thing for our town, right? So what do you think it's going to take for this government to see that this whole bail system, this what's going on? Because what I see now, and I've already talked to officers that are very good friends of mine, I just had an Elmer police chief in, Kyle Johnstone, and he said one of the biggest things that's it's so hard for them is trying to get that officer to not get into that why do I even bother? Feel.
Police morale is a huge issue. And I've spoken to a lot of my brother's a police officer. I've spoken to a lot of frontline officers. And the one really heartbreaking thing is that when I ask them, knowing what you know now, would you sign up today? Almost always they say no.
Did they really?
Or they equivocate. Yeah. They say, yes, but, because they're not seeing support from the government that they need. And municipally, we have an amazing relationship. I've had a very good relationship with Chief Mark Roskamp, with Chief Kyle Johnstone. I'm meeting tomorrow with the London Police Chief because London is a part of my riding as well. And, the bail reform issue is the number one priority. It's one that I'm pushing personally as well. I'm on the Justice Committee, which means the crime and justice matters are ones that I'm going to have a direct hand in. Yep. And, when people say, well, what are you talking about? Well, I'll give one quick explanation. In 2018, the Liberal government passed Bill C-75. And one of the changes in this was it added a section to the criminal code that was called the principle of restraint. And this section says that judges must release offenders, quote, at the earliest reasonable opportunity and under the least onerous conditions. And this, since 2018, police have drawn a direct line to judges releasing these prolific serial offenders out on the street almost automatically. We had that, horrendous case in June where it happened to have been my old campaign office. The Acacia block on Talbot Street was burned down by someone out on bail. A couple days later, you had an attempted arson at Steg by someone who was out on bail for arson. We have a case that we've uncovered where a repeat offender with no fixed address, a homeless man in St. Thomas, was arrested for breaking and entering, released on bail. His bail condition was a curfew. He had to be in his residence. That's what it says on the bail form, in his residence. How are police supposed to check if someone without a residence is complying with their bail conditions? But this is the absurdity.
No matter where he goes in town, he's in his residence.
Well, yeah, maybe that's the loophole. But this is exactly what we need to fix. And there are going to be other issues along the way. We're going to need to look at jail capacity, which is a provincial issue, mental health care, which is provincial, and there is a federal overlap. But at the very least, we need to fix the bail system and listen to what police have been demanding across the country.
Okay, so everybody, it's St. Thomas, and I hate that term. It's St. Thomas. What else do you expect, right? People always, city council, how much can they do? The whole thing is, this isn't just here. No. And it's not just Canada. It's all in the States. We're seeing the same thing. So why is today's world running on this bail, bail and out of cashless bail?
So I think, look, a lot of issues in society are interconnected right now. I mean, when you have cost of living, the price of groceries has doubled.
Yeah, I know.
That pushes more people into homelessness. It pushes more people into food insecurity. More people turn to addiction. All of these issues are connected to this. But what we can't do is take compassion, which is important, and use that as an excuse to not care about victims of crime. And talk to downtown business owners and what they have to deal with, windows being broken, people not wanting to come downtown to patronize downtown businesses. And, to talk about drugs for a moment, when I used to work in radio in London, so this is going back 10 years, we would say, this is a Vancouver problem. And then it was slowly becoming a London problem. And now it's a St. Thomas problem. And you talk to Chief Johnstone, they'll tell you this is now filtering into Elmer. So these things keep going downstream. And now every community of every size is dealing with the exact same problem.
I just saw Josh Morgan last night, the London Police Chief. And he was talking about the issues that were going on there, about the amount of even the gun episodes that have just happened lately.
And it's illegal firearms. It's illegal firearms.
It is, absolutely.
So it's not that it's the law-abiding gun owners that are causing the problems. It's guns that are overwhelmingly smuggled into the U.S.
I've hated this whole gun control thing because all it did was take it away from the good people.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you lock your door. All you're doing is keeping the good people out.
Yeah.
The bad people are still going to come through that door regardless. And that's what they're going to do with the guns. That's where they're getting them. So all right. So we got to get out of here. I know that. So biggest issue right now, though. okay, so I know you got to do it with compassion and everything, but people are absolutely sick of what's going on Talbot Street.
Yeah.
The drugs, the people, the biggest one, it just was at our council with the Inn and Grace Cafe on the West End and I'm not saying they are doing phenomenal services. Don't get me wrong, they are. It's location. It's always location, eh? But here we are, we got residents down at the far West End, the Grand Central Towers. I know people in there, they're terrified. They can't even go out at night and walk their dog because they're physically getting attacked from people out there, and the drugs. They got people that are needles hanging out. But it's not just that. I mean, this is everywhere. No matter where you go, every community has this. But this is pushing our local business. People are, now we do have some new businesses that are coming into, how long are they going to stay? Before, there was a time when I could walk down Talbot Street at 3 o'clock in the morning and I never got bothered. And the people that I know on the police force say, yeah, but Tony, you don't live in that kind of lifestyle, so they don't generally bother you. But it's to the point now, you're not safe because you don't know who's going to come up to you at any given time down there, right? So what can people do, Andrew? People have gone to council. They feel like city council isn't listening. I know they're listening. There's only so much they can do themselves, right? I know so many people want those businesses or those services moved, right? Let's get them out of the downtown.
But all that does is move the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. And
exactly, it does move it. And then no matter where it goes, everybody in that area is going, well, we don't want it in our area. Why are you moving it here, right? So I do understand that. What can people do? So your constituents, as federal, I'm sure Rob's getting a lot of it too with city council. What's your advice to people? How can they talk about this nicely? Okay, you can...
Well, it all comes full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning. We need to be able to listen to people that have very real concerns and not shout them down and say that they're not compassionate. And I know Councillor Earl Taylor tried to do that, and he got a lot of flack. But he was speaking up for people that are frustrated. Yeah. And I don't think I know for a fact he wasn't coming from a place of not being compassionate. He was just saying that we need to also have some compassion for victims
Earl
of this.
Earl is frustrated too, because he lives there too. And Steve Peters, same thing. He's down that area for years and years. And now I've heard Steve backed Earl up on that.
Yeah. So I'm my approach on this, I'm trying to do what I can, and I'm looking at the federal toolkit, and I want to make sure that police are equipped with the tools they need to deal with people that are breaking the law and keep them behind bars when that's what's appropriate. I think we need to stop giving out free drugs. I mean, this has been something that, again, was started from a pure intention, well-intentioned place. It has not worked.
No.
So-called safe supply has not gotten people off of drugs. And I really have to give a shout out to the Annex, which was, built beside Grace Cafe. They've done a tremendous job at getting people to drug treatment. And I think that needs to be our focal point, is getting people off of drugs and providing pathways to get people off of drugs and away from lifestyles that have pulled them into that.
How often do you hear about the old psych hospital? How often does that come up?
It does, because and again, the institutional model was not without its problems, and I don't want to say, no one's talking about rebuilding them, but we do see in this there's a gap between people that don't belong in jail but don't belong on the street, and we haven't yet solved that problem yet.
Right.
And I think we need to, because right now it's turning people, it's forcing people to get very uncompassionate, because they're like, listen, my car's getting broken into, my window's getting broken into, I don't feel safe, walking out of the street. Like, that is not a normal, safe society.
No.
And the one message that I have for people is that's not the way it has to be. Okay. It wasn't always like that, and it doesn't have to be that way.
By what the frustration and the talks I do see online, but I do see, especially just lately, what's been happening in the West End, I can see certain things being taken in hands of other people.
And that's what we don't want.
And we don't, I know, exactly, but I see it building. So is it going to take something like that eventually, when that explodes up, before government and power goes, oh Jesus, we got to do something?
Well, look, I'm telling people I'm aware of this problem. I hear this problem, and I'm bringing it to Ottawa. My office sent out a mailer on crime and justice issues, and we had a little tearaway strip on it for people to send back their feedback. And we have been besieged by responses. My office in Ottawa, I had to go up there, and it just piled with these paper responses, and our email inbox as well. And while I'm upset about that level of frustration, I'm glad that I have that evidence. And in fact, maybe I'll put them all in a box and walk over to the Justice Minister and be like, here you go, Minister. This is what everyone is saying. So I'm hoping they'll get serious.
So recap quick. People that are very frustrated, they're down there, say they live in that apartment buildings there. What is your advice for them so they can get heard? So, do they just email you, call call your office?
Email my office if you can. Call as well, but if you email is good because I need to be able to hear these stories so that when I am on committee, I can point to very real examples. And I need to, I don't need to share your name, but I want to make sure I know who I'm talking to. But also report it too, because we need to have the metrics. So that when we're looking at this problem, we know how many calls there are coming about this issue from this place.
Strength is in numbers.
When people just give up and don't report it, it actually says to the so-called experts, oh, great, see, there's no problem there. Okay. So you actually can't just throw in the towel.
Will your office or will you respond to those emails?
I personally respond to all emails that are personally to me.
That's a big one, too. People send it in, but they never hear back.
So I will say there's a caveat there in that sometimes it takes a bit of time because if we get so many emails, but I do read all the emails that come in that are not for someone else on the team, and I encourage people to reach out at any time.
Awesome. Will you come back sometime?
I would love to.
Will we do it again?
I would love to.
Andrew,
thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So Andrew Lawton, folks, there you go, our federal MP here for St. Thomas, Elgin, London South.
Elgin, St. Thomas, London
Elgin.
South.
Yes, that's
they just
right.
changed it though, so you're forgiven.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, it's always changing. So yeah, thanks again coming in. I know you're such a busy guy. Ottawa in 48 hours?
Basically, yeah, I have to go up Saturday because we have some meetings on the weekend, and then back in the House of Commons.
Watch on TV. You're going to see Andrew on there, and I love your whole thing about the gun registry and all that. With was it the
Gary and Anda Sangri, the public safety minister?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was great. So, all right, folks, there you go, Andrew Lawton, our federal MP. So, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to get Andrew back again sometime in the future. We'll get a rundown, and maybe I'll take some cameras and we'll go to Ottawa and see Andrew. Maybe we can do something there, all right? Thanks again, everybody. Take care and keep watching. You never know who's coming on. Bye. There we go.
Perfect. That was good.